Stop playing everything. Larry Charles is here. Couldn't be more exciting. We've never met.
No, I'm very excited to meet you. Hi.
Hi. I can't believe, first of all, the nice thing you said about me on that, I don't know if you were joking. Maybe you were joking about being,
I wasn't actually. You are one of the few people who is so original, so out of the blue, that when my son actually turned me on to Tom Goes to the Mayor and then the Tim and Eric show. And I was literally, from a comedic standpoint, blown away, and still am.
Jeez.
What you do is so original that I'm a true admirer.
Well, we got to let you go. We don't want to get into anything more. That's all I wanted to hear. No, that is so meaningful to me, and I'm almost getting choked up because you are, like I said earlier, you belong on the Mount Rushmore of comedy for me in the past 30 years, the work that you've done. And before I even got into making comedy, you were this presence that I knew about, that I saw, because of your look, because you got the beard, and you're kind of like the what's his name, Rick Rubin of comedy or something. There's something kind of unique and special about you that is, it's a cool. I think it's.
Come on.
When you're looking at something like Seinfeld, and there's a certain kind of button.
It's called laziness, by the way. I'm lazy.
But that's great. But there was something kind of that made Seinfeld not just kind of cool because of your involvement with it. Just even seeing you on the periphery or knowing that you had something to do with it was like, there's more to that than maybe is apparent right away. And people always go, Tim, you must hate.
Thank you.
People think about me and Eric and Doug and us like, you guys must hate comedy or you're anti-comedy or any of this shit. I love comedy and I loved Seinfeld and I still do. And Curb Your Enthusiasm and all. Here he goes. Anyways, you are at the center of all that, man.
Thank you. I consider you you make me laugh out loud, Tim. So in all that you do. So even though you may be anti-comedy, you're part of a very grand tradition, starting with Andy Kaufman and through Sasha and. What you're doing is just very, very distinctive and super funny.
Thank you. And I reject the term. I reject the term anti-comedy. There's no meaning. It doesn't exist to me. It's just because it's just like, it's our kind of comedy. It's what we do. But sometimes we make fun of comedy.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Sometimes comedy itself can be made fun of. But what do we want to talk?
It needs to be parodied. I agree.
You're first of all, I was looking you up. I saw that you grew up in in Trump Village in Queens. How is that? You've been around the Trumps literally your entire life, and now you are amidst in the sinking ship along with the rest of us. But that's kind of a funny.
I can't escape. I can't escape the Trumps. I can't escape the Trumps. Fred Trump, his father was a pervasive presence in Trump Village.
Really?
The man looked like Satan personified.
Oh my God.
He was a really, really scary person. When they opened the Little League field, I was on a Little League team, and Fred Trump brought Donald Trump, who's about 10 years older than me, brought him at that time when I was about 10 or 11 years old to Trump Field for the inaugural ball game there. And I remember the two of them standing there with their big, long, black top coats and their weird hair. And even as a 10 or 11-year-old, knowing that these people were somehow or another freaks,
Yeah.
I just didn't know how,
You smelled some rotten fish there. Right
no
away.
question.
Thank you, Ed.
Well, listen, first of all, I don't know. I want to talk about so much stuff, but I don't want to just make this a rambling thing. But last night rewatched Masked and Anonymous because I saw it when it first came out, and I got Bob on the brain because he's out with a new record, and I'm very public about this. He's my favorite artist of all time. I mean, of any medium. Maybe Da Vinci. I love Leonardo da Vinci. I love his sculptures.
But he's in that. When you think about artists that survive their time and transcend their time, and that we still talk about, that's a very small handful of people. That's Shakespeare. That's Da Vinci. There are not too many artists who survive their time, and Bob Dylan will be an artist that survives his time.
No question. So how did that? I mean, you tell me how much you want to talk about it, but how did that first come about, and what was it like? Because watching that movie, it seemed like very challenging as a director because of so many personalities, so many, like, you know, everyone you could think of that seems like they might be hard to work with is in this movie. John Goodman, who else?
John Mellencamp.
I'm losing my mind about this. John Mellencamp's probably in it. I mean, what is it like to direct him?
To work with Bob Dylan, it's a life. It was interesting because he had never really done an actual movie before, so he didn't know about things like marks or blocking. So he would just wander into the scene and wander around, and he wouldn't land where he was supposed to land, and he wouldn't come in on cue. And we had only 20 days to shoot that movie. So I eventually came up with a system where his stand-in, who was a great guy, would actually walk through the scene with the other actors, like Jeff Bridges and John Goodman, and Bob would watch.
Right.
And he would do the lines to stand-in, and he would hit the marks. And then Bob would step in and basically do an impression of the stand-in, and that's how he got that. That's how he got that performance.
I mean, it's effective. Like, he works he's so compelling to look at, and of course he has this sort of cowboy look going on and the mustache, and he's very good on camera. I mean,
he's great. He's great. He's like a Clint Eastwood type. That's what I wanted him to be, that kind of almost like Buster Keaton, Clint Eastwood. Stone face, no emotions portrayed on his face, you know. Yeah,
I think it is like sort of like where you can just put him in and things can happen around him, and he can just be sort of the center and the anchor.
He's like a cipher that kind of draws all this energy, you know. And literally in the making of the movie, that's how it worked as well.
Where did you shoot that in town? Like at a studio? You shot at some backlot or some soundstage, right?
We shot in downtown LA. We shot on the streets of downtown LA, and then we shot in the Masonic Temple on Wilshire, and then we shot in a soundstage somewhere in the Deep Valley, where he would go take a walk at lunchtime in his khakis and his hoodie, and he'd walk around these neighborhoods, and the police grabbed him a couple of times. Yeah. And he was like, no, I'm Bob Dylan. They were like, yeah, right.
That happened to him in New Jersey, right? That was a big story a few years ago, like 10 years ago in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
He went for a stroll and he was like looking in windows. So
yeah. He's done it around the world where he kind of just wanders through, and he is masked and anonymous in a very strange way.
Right.
He's not hiding himself, but he is anonymous at the same time, and is able to that's how he's able to stay in the real world, actually.
Yeah, I mean, so you guys kind of wrote it. You guys wrote it together, right?
We sat in a cubicle in his boxing gym while he chain smoked. I was not smoking cigarettes at the time, and he was chain smoking. And we'd sit in this little cubicle, and we wrote for about a year together in that cubicle, about 12 hours a day. It was
Jesus Christ.
Amazing experience.
Boxing gym?
It was incredible.
Yeah, ask about that
incredible, life-changing experience.
Were there days or even weeks in that experience where you're like, how are we going to do this? Or was there points where you're like, this is hard, too much? Like, that sounds like a lot of writing. Sounds like a lot of ideas. Did it ever feel like this is not going to happen?
I reached the point with Bob where I felt comfortable enough where if he suggested something, I could say, you know, Bob, I don't know about that. Like, he had a line in the movie about being a pig without a wig. And I said, you know, Bob, even in this movie, that line doesn't make any sense. You know, nobody's going to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And he said, what's so bad about misunderstanding?
Yeah.
And that kind of cracked my head open. It's like, what is so bad about misunderstanding, really? He's already been understood.
Yeah.
He's curious about what happens beyond that process.
So
everything was a learning experience. You had to stay in that moment, you know?
How much did you love the the Rolling Thunder review that those guys did. I mean, what a head trip that was.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was a total goof.
He made a movie from that experience called Ronaldo and Clara, which
I have a poster up in my room of that.
Yes, exactly.
Poster.
It's like 4.5 hours long. It's very unstructured. And this was kind of an attempt to sort of structure something, but keep it in that kind of loose form that Ronaldo and Clara had.
Right. What's your relationship with him now after that movie? Did he just kind of go off and do his next thing? And he's not the kind of guy that like stays in touch with people too much?
Yeah, I tell people that you don't become friends with Bob Dylan. You just temporarily amuse him. and that's I was one of the people that came along and temporarily amused him during that project.
Right.
I'm sure we would have a warm moment if I saw him today, but I have not seen him probably since like a couple of concerts after the movie or something. You know.
Oh man. I love it. He's so fascinating and such a mystery and so kind of inspirational to me in a very weird way that maybe people don't get or don't understand. But I don't want to keep you all day. You have a savant-like quality, Tim. Like, again, I don't know you that well. Why don't we become friends? Where do you live? You're on the west side? You're a real person, and I know you're a family man and all that stuff. I live up in the mountains, actually, pretty far away. So pretty isolated, actually. But, what I was going to say was that you have that same savant-like quality. Like, there's nobody that's doing what you're doing. You have a very original voice. And that's really the same thing as Bob, you know. Yeah. Bob trusts his instincts like you do, you know. I'm like David Crosby. These guys behind me better pay attention to this. They show me no respect. Listen, I know because we follow each other on Twitter, and you've said we've kind of exchanged things back and forth. And then I found out that you were coming into Absolutely talk to Dave about stuff, and I just couldn't believe it. That, again, you're just up there high on the mountain as far as guys go that have influenced me, that have influenced culture, comedy. Doug, do you have a question for Larry?
You know what? I was.
Well, it's time.
I was saying, I think I was emailing you about an editing project. Remember? I'm that guy that you were emailing.
No. Which was this?
You sent me an email.
Hi, Doug.
Hi.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Doug.
And you know Vic, of course, right?
Doug, I love your work. I love your work as well, Doug. I think you're fantastic. You guys are doing something really, really amazing to me. The whole Absolutely concept, Tim and Doug, is brilliant to me as well. And I admire you for being able to figure that system out as well, because that's tough.
It is
in
tough.
The media landscape.
It's tough.
I'd be curious. Someday I want to talk to you in more detail about your system and your operation and how you are so prolific and so original and able to keep perpetuating that stuff, because it's amazing to me.
Maybe I'll do that thing where I come up and visit you in the mountains, and do that thing that
anytime, man.
That people do. They go, I went up and I was up there. It was isolated, and we talked about our craft. I want to get into that.
Maybe
I'm a lifer. You know what, Larry? I was thinking of, speaking of Dylan, there's people, like me, Doug, Vic is becoming this way now. Neil Hamburger, Eric, that we've made this choice. This is what we're going to end up doing for the rest of our lives in some form or fashion. And it's like, this, I have no choice. I'm committed to what this,
that's right.
This journey.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
No fallback positions.
There's
no fallback positions.
No.
Standing on the cliff. That's where you have to be to do great art.
Yeah. If you're following me, get in for a long and bumpy ride, because I'm going to be like Dylan. I'm going to be making questionable content. I'm going to be making content that makes you go, oh boy. But then I'm going to come back.
But Bob Dylan has done that too. Bob Dylan has done many things that make no sense whatsoever, that weren't entertaining.
Yeah.
But he was never daunted by that.
Right.
He's encouraged by failure, which is a key to being a great artist. You must embrace failure.
Yeah. I fail every week on this show in certain ways. All right, Larry, I'm going to hit you up once the things get back to normal and try to get together with you in person because, I think seems like we'd get along.
Tim, maybe
Anytime, man.
Okay.
Maybe
Anytime.
Larry can amuse you for a little while.
Well, let me know, and we'll hang out and we'll talk. So we'll put a camera on, and let me ask you some questions. I would
Okay.
really enjoy that as well.
Okay, cool. I love it. All right, Larry, I'll let you go. Peace to you. Peace and love.
Okay. Nice to see you. I'll talk to you guys.
Okay,
See you all
bye.
later.